Hello guys, welcome to our second lesson of the week. Remember we are talking about networks, isn't it? So today we're going to concentrate on communication methods, right? Remember what we spoke about in the previous lesson? We said that in a network is what? Is when two or more devices are connected to each other to exchange information and resources, right? Then we spoke about the different types of networks that are available to us, and we say that a network is dependent on the area that it covers, right? So the physical area to which the network covers gives it its name. We said we had one, the personal area network, two, local area network, home area network, wide area network, which is largely the internet, right? Then we went on to say that for you to have a network, there are specific components that must be present in the network for you to have a network, and we call these basic components, right? We said you need hardware, you need the communication mode, and you need the software. So today we're going to concentrate on the communication. When devices are now connected on a network, what is it that makes them exchange information? All right. I'll just take you back. Maybe you guys are not familiar with how the telephone was invented. I remember at primary school we had this experiment that we would do, whereby you get tins, maybe an empty can, or usually we use the baked beans tin, like the cool bean. So we would have two tins and a copper wire or just a wire that was attached to the two tins. I'm sure some of you have done that before. Then one will stand at the other end and the other one will stand at the other end. And you will try to talk inside the tin while the other person listens. Right. Now, that's how basically devices communicate. The tins are the devices. The wire in between the tins is the method of communication, and in this case, it will be a copper wire. So in a network, it is the same principle. All right. So now we're going to talk about the types of communication, the hardware for communication, the advantages and the advantages and the disadvantages of networks. So that's what we want to talk about today. But I think maybe as far as advantages or disadvantages are concerned, we might have to cover that tomorrow when we wrap up on our networks, right? So on the advantages and disadvantages part, we have to talk about that tomorrow. All right. So what is communication in a network? So computers and other devices in a network must be connected by some sort of communication method or medium, right? In the example I gave you of that experiment, we said the copper wire is actually the communication medium. All right. So here is an example of a network, right? We have got two networks that are depicted in this picture, right? The first one is a wireless one. As you can see, this is the part, right? This gray area that you can see there is the radius or the area that is covered by the Wi-Fi net. In this case, it is a Wi-Fi network. Right now, what happens is that in a wireless connected network, there is a point where the waves are being transmitted. Like in this case, there is a device in the middle there next to the word Wi-Fi, right? That is providing networks to the laptop there, to the printer there, and the smartphone there. Now, as you move away from the wireless access point, we call it a wireless access point, the network generally becomes weaker. All right, so we're going to talk about that. So we have a wireless network there. Then a wireless network is actually referred to as a WLAN, right? WLAN doesn't mean wide local area network. It actually simply means wireless local area network, right? Then the other one that you can see there is the wired network, right? The wired network is the one which uses cables to connect, right? And the cables are usually referred to as Ethernet cables. So regardless of whether the network is wired or is wireless, you still need to have a switch, right? You need a switch in that network. So remember we spoke about a switch in the previous lesson, that it connects devices together. So nowadays we have a situation whereby the switch and a router, that's something we're going to talk about in one of the lessons, that connects your network to other networks. But then the switch connects the devices in the network so that information is distributed in an organized way. So each network requires a switch. Right. So let's start with the wired local area network, right? Right. The most commonly used piece of hardware for a wired network is called the UTP cable, right? How does a UTP cable looks like? It looks a bit, actually looks like that, right? So what does UTP stand for? It stands for unshielded twisted pair, right? Now, if I do a bit of a close up, when you see, I'm sure you've come across a cable like this, maybe at school, at your home, right? When you connect your computer to the Wi-Fi router, you use some sort of a cable. The cable is also there for those of us that still have got landline telephones. Yeah, the socket where you connect the phone has got an interface that looks more or less like the cables that I've just presented to, right? Now, one end connects to the NIC at the back of the system unit and the other on the switch, right? Remember in the previous lesson, we spoke about the network interface card, right? Which when you look at the back of your PC or when you look on the side of your laptop, depending on the brand of your laptop, it can be on the left hand side or on the right hand side. So now the one end is the one that plugs into the network port that is available on your system unit. Then the other connects to the switch, right? So that's the UTP cable, right? Right. Then another cable that is available is the fiber optic, which uses light to send data and is therefore very fast. Right. Now, what do we mean when we say fast, right? Remember, in a network, the information flows from one device to the other, right? So the amount of data that is transferred between devices has got various speeds, right? And these speeds are usually measured in megabits per second or in gigabytes per second. Those are the new trends actually, and but generally it's megabits per second or kilobytes per second. So that amount, we usually call it the what? The bandwidth, right? So the amount of data uh, that can be transported between one device to the other is called bandwidth. So a fiber optic cable is more like a UTP cable, but then this one, when it transfers data, it uses light, right? Therefore, it is fast. Now, a fiber optic cable looks more or less like what we have there, right? Now, this is a close-up of how the fiber optic cable looks like, all right? So now you have seen maybe in your area that there are people who have been digging around, laying some cables, and we've had some homes that have been connected to fiber, right? And remember, there are different types of internet connections. I'm sure you've heard of uh, ADSL, you've heard of LTE, you've heard of 3G, you've heard of all those sorts of internet terms, right? Now, the fiber now comes with better speeds, right? And most people appreciate the way the fiber is being used. But then now the problem that we're having is that the fiber connection is not everywhere. There are some areas that still don't have fiber, and it's something that probably is being worked on, and very soon almost everyone in South Africa will be able to connect to a fiber network, right? Right. So let's talk a little bit more about this fiber optic cable, right? It is mainly used as a backbone to connect local area networks, right? We need to appreciate that the fiber optic cable transfers data at very high speeds, right? So when we say it is used as a backbone, you have a local area network. Let's say it's the computer, your computer lab at school, right? Maybe let's say in that computer lab, we've got 40 computers. Those 40 computers can be connected in the using UTP cables because they are fewer. But then when you now connect maybe your computer lab to the IT lab, for example. Let's say you've got two labs, the CAT lab and the IT lab, right? And they also have some sort of like connection between computers, right? So the fiber optic cable now comes through to connect the IT lab local area network and the CAT lab local area network. So the connection, the cable that is used between the two networks, the cable that is used to connect between the two networks is fiber. That's why we say it's used as a what? As a backbone. You can actually picture it in your like your skeleton, your backbone in your skeleton. You see, it's the main bone in your body, right? And it is the one that holds uh, the structure, your body structure in place. All right. So it is used for that, right? Then the other thing is that these cables, as you can see, they're fairly new technology. Well, in Africa, they're probably new, but in some countries, they have been using them for a while now. But the way you remember, there are some, the material that they're made of is more like it's brittle material, more like glass or plastic that easily fragments or something like, or breaks down. Now, so it makes the handling of such cables very difficult, right? And when you need to install it, you have to acquire services of somebody with the technical and precise knowledge of how to handle such cables. So in turn, this makes it very difficult for you to just implement it at school level or at a small organization level. So you have to acquire someone with the necessary skills and expertise to deal with the installation and stuff. Otherwise, you can imagine if somebody is inexperienced and they keep on cutting the cable. Remember, this cable is also expensive to buy, right? Because of its superiority over the UTP cable. So now you employ somebody who comes through and just cuts and has got wasted material all over. So at the end of the day, you really need a person who knows exactly what they are doing. All right. Now, this is the biggest advantage that the fiber optic cable has over all the other over UTP, is because that it can actually transfer data at very high speeds. Now, I'm sure you have heard of a cable that has been laid in the Indian Ocean that brings the internet to Africa, right? This cable runs all the way from Ethiopia, Tanzania, Mozambique, right down to Durban there. It is actually laid in the Indian Ocean, in the sea. And this cable is made up of these fiber optic cables because it can handle very high speeds in data transfer in a network. All right, so hence fiber optic can actually transfer at very high speed. Remember, we've spoken about when we say speed, what is it that we are talking about? It's either kilobytes per second, megabytes per second, or gigabytes per second. So that one we actually going to talk about it, right? So another cable that has gained traction over the years is the Gigabit UTP, right? Now, gigabit stands for 1 gigabit of data per second, or Gbps. This translates to 1000 megabits, which may recognize as being really, really fast. Now, I need you to picture this. Suppose you want to the speed, if you can try to imagine the speed at which this cable transmits data. Suppose you are downloading a movie. Maybe let's say you have a subscription with Netflix, and remember Netflix, is it Netflix or Showmax or Amazon Prime? They've got this service that when you subscribe to them, you can actually download some of the movies so that you can watch them offline. Right now, imagine a movie is probably 700 megabytes, right? If you try that now with the current speeds that are available to us, you see that maybe the best that network can do is maybe transfer 2 megabytes, sometimes 3 mega. That means, you know, those speeds are really achieved by good networks, right? Now, then you have a situation whereby you have to wait for that movie to be downloaded in its whole entirety. So that can take close to even 30 minutes or even 20 minutes, because each time maybe 1 megabyte is transferred at a time. Now imagine you had the internet connection that can give you speeds of 1 gigabyte per second, right? What does that mean? It means when you now want to download a movie, I'm just talking about the data transfer here. When you want to download the movie, you just click download and instantly, right, the whole movie has been downloaded, 700 megabytes. That is pretty quick. Another comparison you can make is the way you download videos on your WhatsApp, right, or pictures. Do you see that when you download a picture, right, the moment you click download, the picture already shows? It's because the picture has got a small data size, and your internet speed can actually handle that, right? But sometimes somebody sends a video on a WhatsApp platform, and then when you download it, the video might take maybe 10 seconds or 5 seconds, depending on how big the video is and how good your network is, right? So cables also have got that have got a similar effect, right? So the type of cable you use also enables you to have exchange of information in a network quite conveniently, right? So the Gigabit UTP looks something like that, right? So the front end, so it looks pretty slick, and some of the names that are given to this is Cat 7, Cat 5, Cat 6. So if you get some time, if you're really interested in this networking issues, you should actually read more about these cables. And actually, networking is a good career to do. So if you're really interested in this, it's a good career opportunity that you can actually take up. All right, moving on. Now we want to look at the unshielded twisters pair versus fiber. Right now, I'm sure most of you are already thinking, okay, fine, why don't I just do away with why don't I do away with the UTP and just use fiber instead? Or better yet, why don't I use the Gigabit UTP instead of using all this? Now, with the cable that you use really depends on your requirements, right? Now, picture a situation whereby you stay maybe about 10 kilometers from your school, right? And you need to move back and forth, going home, going to school every day of the week. Then you are asked to get a car, right? And the car that you need to get is specifically to move you from school to home. Then you go and buy a Ferrari, right? A Ferrari that probably has got so much speed that you are not going to use, right? Because the school is not very far, and you don't, and there are speed limits, for example, on your way from home to school. So you cannot really need a supercar that can reach speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour if the maximum speed that you can travel between your school and your home is 60 kilometers per hour, right? So it will be pointless for you to have those kinds of speed. So similarly, your network needs, right, are the ones that actually determine how much of speed cabling you need, right? Because you might waste money buying a gigabit cable, yet what you transfer are just Word documents amongst each other, or better yet, data files for an exam, which are usually 3-4 megabytes. So it is not really necessary to have cables that can handle uh, so much speed. So there is a comparison between UTP and fiber, but the most important thing to consider is your needs first. All right. So normal UTP cables are much slower than fiber. Now that is now really obvious, isn't it? But like I just said just now, the amount of speed you need depends on your own requirements, right? UTP cables can only span a certain distance before signal strength weakens. Fiber spans for longer distances, right? So now, if you have a situation whereby you need to connect computers in an office or in a school, in a computer lab, or just the whole school, right? UTP cables should do the work. But then when you have a larger area to cover, for example, a university, I'm sure you have been to some university campuses that are very big right now. Connecting the different networks on the university will require a certain distance for the cables. Now, if you're going to use a UTP cable, as the distance increases, the amount of data that can be transferred between the two devices through a UTP cable becomes less. The megabits per second transferred become less. So here now, the fiber optic cable actually works, right? Right. Data transferred through UTP cable can be intercepted. Fiber is immune to eavesdropping in quotes. What are we talking about? Now, you see, in the life that we live now, they call it the digital age or the fourth industrial revolution, and there is artificial intelligence, AI. I'm sure you have heard of such things. Now, there are people out there that have dedicated their lives to uh, prying into people's information without people's knowledge. And the popular term that is used for this is hacking, right? Now, if somebody is skilled enough, they can actually intercept the information that is being transferred by through a UTP cable. Now, it sounds as if anyone can just intercept, but the person who intercepts such information has to be really skilled, right? The hacker has to be skilled. And you know, people are hacking through networks for different reasons. Some of the reasons are just for the fun of it, just to show that they can do it. Others are actually doing it for money, where in an instance where they demand money through bitcoins. I'm sure you have heard of ransomware, terms like ransomware being talked about in the news whenever you read, where information of an organization is captured, and the people who would have captured the information will actually demand some money, and the money is usually through the ransom payment is usually digital money, that like bitcoin. Now, that's not a good career to actually pursue. Rather, pursue networking and help your country, help your family and friends, because technical issues are almost popping up every day when it comes to networks, right? So UTP cables make it easier for such people to access information. Now, when it comes to fiber, fiber is immune to those kind of things. All right. Then another thing with the UTP cable, that it can be affected by electrical sources. Fiber is not. Electrical sources, we're talking of electromagnetic interference, right? Now, I'm sure if when you were younger, if you placed maybe a cell phone next to the TV, right, and somebody calls the phone and it's placed next to the TV, the TV makes some flickering movements on the screen, right? These flickering movements are generally caused by interference. Or those of you that still listen to the radio, right? Sometimes when you're changing through stations in the radio, you might face some sound, sound that goes through the radio as you're looking for channels looking for stations, until you get to a part whereby you can now hear the voices of the DJs quite clearly. So that sound that happens there is due to interference. Now, when it comes to computers, you don't really hear a sound, but for example, you have a situation whereby maybe right now, if you are having this lesson, watching it live, you see that maybe my voice does not come out clearly. It's a bit raspy because of the strength of your internet or some reasons, right? So when it comes to fiber optic, it is not really affected by such things. All right, so it is quite useful, but this does not really mean that a UTP cable is not used. Actually, the UTP cable is the most commonly used cable for networking, especially in buildings. So it is really a good thing for you to actually try and find out more about the UTP cable, the advantages it has over fiber optic. All right, so those are the piece of hardware that are used for communication in a wired network. So that's the UTP cable. What does UTP stands for? Unshielded twisted pair. Then we have the fiber optic cable, which uses light to transfer data. Then most recently we've got the Gigabit UTP, which supports large speeds of even up to a gig. So those are the communication mediums or channels that are used for a wired network, right? Then we have a wireless network, right? In a wireless local area network, access points allow wireless communication between devices. So this wireless communication most is usually Wi-Fi, right? Now, the term Wi-Fi, what does it stand for? It actually stands for wireless fidelity, right? The WI is the first two letters of wireless, and the FI is the first two letters of the word fidelity, right? So we have a situation, a wireless network that is depicted there in the picture, right? So an access point in this case is a wireless router, right? The wireless router is the one that receives data from maybe a service provider, then it broadcasts, right? So it sort of like sends radio waves to the devices. Remember, the devices would have a device built in them. We're going to talk about that just now. The device that is built in them to intercept the radio waves being spread out by the router or the access point. We call it the wireless access point. I'm sure even when you check on your phone, you have came across the abbreviation WAP. Well, WAP stands for wireless access points. All right. Right, so the data transmission speed of a network is the rate at which data is transferred. We have spoken about that. And the typical specifications of a cable network include specs such as 100/1000. So when you are buying a router, for example, or when you're buying cables, they will tell you you should look out for such specifications, right? So what does that specification mean? It means that the two speeds indicate the maximum transmission depending on the cable used, right? So these are some of the specifications that you really need to look out for. right? And you should have in mind that this simply refers to bandwidth, and we said bandwidth is the amount of data that can be transmitted from one point to the other. All right. Then for wireless network, the specs are usually shown like that: 802.11g slash n or slash g and stuff like that. So these you will see even on the adverts for laptops, for example. This specification will be there just to tell you that these are the standards that indicate the speed that a wireless network is capable of. So your laptop would have such a specification. Maybe you go to Game or you go to Hi-Fi Corporation, you want to buy a laptop, you come across a specification on the advert, and it looks like this. This simply means that this the device is capable of connecting to a wireless network, and these are the speeds that it can support. All right. Then data transmission over a wireless local area network is actually slower than that of a cable network. You can actually try it sometime if you have Wi-Fi at your house, and if you feel that the network is not too good, you can actually get a UTP cable, connect using a wired cable like a UTP, because that's the easily available and cheapest one to handle. You plug in your laptop, you realize that your internet will actually improve, and you'll actually enjoy using the internet. All right, so just to round up what we've been talking about, UTP is easy and cheap to install, readily available. What does UTP stand for? Unshielded twisted pair. Remember that, okay? And fiber is mainly used as a backbone. It is quite quick, and these cables can run for longer distances, right? Wireless access points are connected to a cable network. That is like your Wi-Fi router has to be connected first to a cable network, then it can now broadcast the radio waves, right? So networking is quite interesting, and like I said, it's a good career to follow. These are just the basics we are talking about, nothing fancy, just to give you an idea of what a network is all about. But if you really want to follow a career in networking, actually it's a good career that you can start on. Start reading about networks, and you will understand more, that there is more things that you can learn, and it's quite interesting. All right, so now this is the activity that you can actually download through that link. So the activity has got questions, and the answers are also there. So you answer the activity. Once you're satisfied with your answers, you go and check the answers, the actual answers, so that you practice. Remember, the exams will be coming soon, and you don't want to miss out in an exam. All right, so when you get to this point of the video, you can actually pause the video. Then remember that this video will be uploaded on YouTube as well. So you pause the video here, and you copy the link on your browser. There, you type that link on your browser. You should download a Word document that has got the activity. All right, so tomorrow we'll round up our lesson on networks. We're just going to do a roundup tomorrow on network software and security, right? So that's it, guys, for today. Our lesson ends here, but remember, you need to follow us on Twitter, on Facebook. Links for other lessons are posted on Facebook. If you go on YouTube and you search for Africa Teen Geeks, you should get videos of lessons as far back as when the lockdown started, so that you're not really left behind. Remember, you need to keep studying, guys. We are gonna go back to school at some point, and I would love a situation whereby when we get back to school, we haven't lost much, and and then we're just revising. All right, thank you so much, guys, for being part of this lesson. I hope to see you tomorrow. Have a good day.